I never thought that a small house would be the reason my family threw me out of their lives like an old coat. I didn't expect that after 10 years of scraping by, what I'd receive wouldn't be congratulations, but my father's cold stare and my sister's mocking smile. I thought I'd done everything right, worked hard, stayed patient, never complained. But in a family where favoritism runs bone deep, effort becomes invisible. I still remember the moment my father knocked on my door, not to visit, but to make a request that made me want to cut both him and my sister out of my life forever. But before everything collapsed, I had a very different life, a life I had drained myself to build, piece by piece. My name is Madison Green. I'm 33 years old, and I work as a veterinary lab technician at a small clinic in Asheville, North Carolina. People often assume I do it because I love animals. That's true, but it's not the whole story. I do it because I can't stand seeing vulnerable creatures discarded by the world. I do it because the grateful glance of a stray cat or the weak tail wag of a dying dog makes me feel like I matter. I don't earn a lot. My annual salary averages around $47,000. 0 cents. Just enough to cover bills, gas from my old 2003 Jeep, and the occasional Taco Tuesday deal, but I love what I do. And I've spent nearly 11 years living in tiny rental apartments, sleeping on a second-hand sofa bought from a flea market, all to chase what felt like an unreachable dream, owning a home of my own. I started saving at 22 while most of my friends were blowing money on trips or end-of-season fashion sales. I shared a room with 2 college classmates, one always fighting with her boyfriend, the other sold handmade items made from human hair on Etsy. I lived off instant noodles in every flavor for the first 3 years, and during that time, I didn't set foot in a movie theater once. Every dollar I saved, I logged carefully in an old notebook. One night, I even broke down crying when I had to dip into my savings to pay for surgery on a blind stray cat I'd found. But I didn't regret it. On the contrary, I took it as a reminder that as long as I could still love, my dream still held meaning. My sister, Camille, 36, is the exact opposite of me, but I won't go into that just yet. What I want to say is regardless of where I started, I walked this path alone. No handouts, no loans, no complaints. And then last fall, I did something I thought would take a few more years. I bought a house. A small, old, American-style cottage on the outskirts of town with a wooden porch, a patchy backyard, and an attic bedroom just big enough for a single bed. It wasn't glamorous like the Pinterest-worthy homes Camille posts about, but to me it was heaven. I still remember the feeling of holding the keys in my hands. They were trembling, not from exhaustion, but because for the first time in my life, I felt like I belonged somewhere. I sat on the scratched wooden floor of the empty living room and cried. Not because I was sad, but because after more than a decade of holding back and being alone, I finally had a place I could call home. I didn't need anyone to give me anything. I just wanted peace in a space I had built myself. But apparently that was a thorn in the side of those who couldn't stand the fact that the least pampered daughter had managed to accomplish something on her own. And from that moment on, the storm began to rise. I used to think that if I stayed quiet long enough, avoided conflict, things would eventually settle. But one truth hit me too late. Some people won't stop until they've stripped you of everything you have, even your dignity. My sister, Camille Green, 3 years older than me, has always been the darling in my parents' eyes. Even at 36, she lives as if the world owes her a luxurious life with no repayment. Camille doesn't work a regular job. She's a holistic lifestyle content creator, which basically means she films videos teaching people how to release negative energy with crystals and posts them on Instagram. She has 3 kids, each with a different father, none of whom provide regular support or play any real role in their lives. But that's never stopped Cammy from using them as props to build her personal brand. You'll see pictures of the kids in pastel uniforms, holding smoothies in front of organic candle shops, with captions like, "Taking my little angels to soak up positive nature energy, a part of the awakened motherhood journey." But the truth is, while she's posting those photos, The kids are usually dumped at my parents' house, while she drives her white SUV to sip wine with her high-frequency women's empowerment group at some fancy hotel. I don't resent Camille for living differently. Everyone makes their choices. But I started feeling unsettled when I realized she's never earned a cent without someone else paying the price. And the one paying most often was my dad. Since I was in high school, Dad has been funneling money to Camille as a future investment. One time, she wanted to launch an organic makeup brand for emotionally wounded postpartum women. He gave her $80,000. 0 cents. The project folded in 6 months because the ingredient vibrations weren't aligned. Then came the chakra candle venture, the sound healing retreat, and the third eye activation essential oils. Dad always wrote the checks. Every time Camille failed, all she had to do was cry, smear her mascara a little, and say something like, "Dad, I just want my kids to be proud of a mom who followed her passion." And just like that, he'd open his wallet again, as if he owed her something. Meanwhile, when I asked for money to buy books for a training course, I was told, "Madison, can't you just take care of things yourself? Life doesn't cater to the weak." I got used to it. Camille being handled like a crystal figurine while I was expected to grow on concrete. When I taught myself to change a flat tire in the rain, she was posing with a Prada bag Dad had just given her. When I pulled all-nighters during emergency vet shifts, she was live streaming a full moon manifestation session on a hotel balcony in Miami. I used to feel jealous, but that emotion faded, replaced by something sharper. Vigilance. I knew that one day Camille would set her sights on something I had, and I knew that when that day came, Dad would stand on her side. What I didn't know was how soon it would come, and what Camille wanted was the only home I had. That night, I had just finished an exhausting shift with 3 back-to-back emergency cases: a cat hit by a car, a dog choking on a chew toy, and a snake bite to a pot-bellied pig's ear. I reeked of antibiotics and dried blood, my head pounding from hunger. I'd barely collapsed onto the couch when the phone rang. It was my father. "Madison, are you home? Camille and I want to drop by real quick, just a small thing." "A small thing?" His voice was syrupy, but I could smell the gasoline behind it. A part of me wanted to say no on the spot, but I was too drained to argue. "Okay," I said, "but not long. I need to rest." 20 minutes later, I heard tires crunching over gravel. Looking out the window, I saw Dad step out of his black Lexus, and right behind him, Camille, in a flaming red designer jumpsuit and clawed high heels. Phone in hand. Live stream already rolling. Before I could even open my mouth, she walked in, scanning the room like she was on a reality show set. "Oh my God, Madison, are you living minimalist or auditioning for a post-apocalyptic movie?" I tightened my robe, stood squarely between her and the rest of the house. "Get to the point, I don't have time for your theater." Dad cleared his throat, lowering himself onto the couch like he was about to pitch a business merger. "Sweetheart, Camille's going through a lot. 3 kids, tuition, career stress. Your mother and I think maybe this house is a bit much for one person. Have you considered—" "No," I cut him off, voice hard as granite. Camille smirked, crossing her legs like she was doing a cover shoot. "Don't act like I'm asking for the moon. You don't even use all this space. I just need a stable home for the kids and a spot to shoot some inspiring content." I looked my father dead in the eyes. "You're seriously asking me to hand over the house I bought, renovated, and bled for to Camille? The same Camille who burned through the house you gave her like it was garbage?" Camille laughed, running her fingers through her hair. "Oh, come on, are you still mad about that? Why live in the past? Jackson says your energy is blocked in your 3rd chakra." I didn't bother replying. I turned around, walked straight into my home office, and pulled a thick folder from the drawer. Back in the living room, I placed it in front of my father. "If you want to have a serious conversation, then let's do the math." Camille rolled her eyes. "Oh God, what is this, the angry single woman's notebook?" I flipped open the first page. The house Dad gave you was worth $620,000, 0 cents, at the time. You sold it to invest in, what was it again? A detox and music therapy center? That was a pioneering startup model, Camille shouted. And it collapsed in 5 months, I nodded calmly, like I was reading a prescription. Then Dad gave you another $90,000, 0 cents, to build a chakra perfume brand, and another $60,000, 0 cents, for that inner rebirth retreat in Sedona. My father said nothing. I went on. In total, Dad poured over $800,000, 0 cents, into your fleeting dreams. And me? I haven't seen a single cent. My father looked at me, his face tightening. Madison, this isn't about money. It's about family, about helping each other when times are hard. I raised my head, my voice low but resolute. Family doesn't demand one person sacrifice everything, just because the other never learned how to stand on their own. Camille shot up, yelling, I'm a mother of 3. You don't understand the weight I carry. What do you have? A bunch of half-dead animals and a house with no aesthetic. I stared at her, a steady, unblinking gaze. Aesthetic can be fixed. Your shamelessness? That's beyond repair. The air in the room thickened. Camille was shaking with rage. My father froze as if slapped. I pointed toward the door. You both need to leave, and don't ever come back with an insulting offer like that again. I thought after such a blunt rejection, they'd back off, but I was too naive. A few days later, Camille posted a series of Instagram stories with sad background music, speaking in a soft, frail voice, as if she were dying in a hospital bed. Sometimes, the ones who hurt you the most are the ones closest to you. But I believe in the law of attraction. Those who sow harm will receive harm. I'll rise again. For my 3 children, for the light. While that was happening, I was already taking action. And this time, I wasn't playing by the old rules. I pulled a small silver USB from the locked drawer in my office. Inside was a complete copy of all the evidence I'd gathered over the past 5 years, starting from the day Camille sold the house my parents gave her to invest in cosmic sound healing. It wasn't paranoia. Living long enough in a biased family teaches you one thing. If you don't protect yourself, no one else will. I stayed up all night at the computer, opening file after file. Bank statements of transfers from Dad to Camille, the title deed of her old house, the sales contract, even a local magazine article about the female entrepreneur launching ionized wellness water, who vanished without a trace 3 months later. I had screenshots of receipts, text messages, and even a video clip Camille had once proudly shared on a live stream. Thank you, Dad, for believing in me. I promise this music detox healing concept will spark a revolution. I'm no hacker, but I'm patient, and I know exactly who I'm dealing with. The next morning, I called a close friend, Rebecca, a legal assistant at a law firm in downtown Asheville. I sent her copies of the documents. Her reaction was instant. Madison, if this goes to court, Camille could be investigated for misuse of family assets and investment fraud. I nodded. I'm not planning to sue. Yet. But I want them to know that this time, I won't stay silent. That afternoon, I invited Dad and Camille back to my house, saying we needed one final conversation. They arrived on time, clearly thinking I had changed my mind. Camille even brought a vision board, framed with fake flowers, plastered with pictures of my house and the title, Mom's Enlightened Kingdom of Light. I pointed to the table where I had laid out documents in order like a mini courtroom. Proof Camille received the house. Records of the sale. Money transferred for healing music. All gone. More loans. Gone again. Transfers from Dad's company account. My father's face turned pale with each sheet. Camille tried to keep her cool, gripping her phone like she was ready to go live if things flipped in her favor. I slid the final document forward. A financial agreement Camille had signed with Dad in 2020, stating she would use family assets responsibly and not for high-risk ventures, failing which, she would be liable to repay them fully. Camille's jaw dropped. That doesn't have legal force, does it? I smirked. Maybe not, but what do you think Rebecca, the one at the district attorney's office, would say about it? My father panicked. Are you threatening your own family? No, Dad. I clenched my hands, voice as cold as stone. I'm protecting the only part of my life I built on my own, from people who don't understand what boundaries are. Emil hissed. If you go through with this, I'll take it public. I have followers. I have influence. I pulled out a printout, a report of her recently purchased fake followers, with receipts from a third-party site. What do you think your brand sponsors will say when they learn all your product reviews were fake? That you took the sponsorships, returned the items, and pocketed the cash? Should I forward this to the FTC? Camille went silent. I stood up and pointed to the door. This is your only warning. Next time, it'll be my lawyer speaking. I thought after facing the evidence they would back down. But Camille doesn't know how to retreat. And my father, the man who once prided himself on logic, had become a walking wallet, loyal only to his golden daughter. It all came to a head on a Tuesday afternoon while I was helping with tumor removal surgery on a 13-year-old Shih Tzu. In the middle of stitching the incision, my phone buzzed non-stop in my scrub pocket. Normally I'd ignore it, but this time, my gut twisted. Out of surgery, I checked the messages. The first was from Karen, my neighbor to the left. Madison, there are strangers moving stuff into your house. They say they're family. Everything okay? Attached was a photo of a U-Haul truck parked in my driveway. Next was Mike from behind my property. Your dad and Camille are changing the locks. They brought a locksmith. She says she's authorized to use the house. You good? I felt the ground tilt, hands trembling. I didn't even change out of my scrubs. I just told work I had an emergency and sped down the highway. What I saw when I got home made my blood boil. Emile, wearing a flowy white maxi dress, phone in hand, was filming her 3 kids choosing rooms like they were on a reality show. My dad was supervising the locksmith while movers hauled a pink velvet couch into my living room. Stop right there, I yelled, slamming my car into park. Put that down, now, immediately. Camille turned, giving me an annoyed glare. Madison, you just ruined the footage. You realize I'm about to launch a home renovation series, right? People are waiting for this. I stepped onto the porch and pointed directly at the locksmith. Did you verify who owns this house? The locksmith looked flustered. Oh, they said it belonged to the family. They had some paperwork. I pulled out my phone, opened my cloud storage app, and showed him the deed, tax records, and mortgage contract, all under my name. Take a good look, and if you keep going, I'll sue you for aiding and abetting trespassing. The locksmith turned pale and silently packed up his tools. My father stepped forward, trying to keep his voice calm. Sweetheart, this is all just a misunderstanding. Camille needs a place for the kids, and you? You're single, working all day. This house just sits empty. It's not the house that's empty. It's your common sense, I replied, my voice sharp as a blade. Camille cut in. I have 3 kids who need to grow up in a healthy environment. What do you have? Some shedding cats and a bunch of old wooden furniture? I didn't respond. Instead, I took out my phone and hit record. Camille Green and Mr. Howard Green, I am recording this as evidence. You've unlawfully entered private property, changed the locks, moved in furniture, and exploited family ties for personal gain. Camille scoffed. Madison, don't be ridiculous. You think the police are going to arrest a mother of 3 just for walking into her sister's house? What kind of logic is that? It's not my sister's house. It's the legal property of U.S. citizen Madison Green. And now? I pressed the call button. 911, I'd like to report a break-in and unauthorized lock change. Camille went silent. My father's face turned ashen. The movers started backing out, whispering to each other. The kids yelled because they couldn't film TikToks anymore. 10 minutes later, 2 police officers arrived. One of them asked directly, "Who owns this property?" I held up my driver's license and the documents. I do, they broke in, and here's the evidence. The officer turned to Camille and my father. Do either of you have legal documentation proving ownership or authorized use of this home? Camille mumbled. We're family. That's not a legal basis. I'm going to have to ask both of you to leave the premises. Camille screamed. This is abuse of power. I'm a victim. Madison hates kids. She lives like a hermit with mental issues. You're all going to get sued for discriminating against single moms like me. I stood still, eyes unblinking. Go ahead and post your video. Just know that every false word you say will be followed by counter evidence sent directly to every brand you've partnered with. Camille pressed her lips shut. My father quietly looked down. The police escorted them out and began writing a report. I sighed, looking around at my house now littered with dirty footprints and an overpowering fake floral scent. But still, it was mine. I thought everything had ended after the police kicked them out in disgrace. But I underestimated one thing. People who survive by leeching off others always have another trick when cornered. The next morning I woke up to dozens of messages. A few friends sent me Camille's latest Instagram story. Today I need to speak up. About abuse, about injustice, about being pushed to rock bottom by my own flesh and blood. But I will not stay silent. I will fight. For my children. For the single mom community. Attached was a black and white photo of Camille crying in a corner, with a filter so heavy it looked like a memorial picture. I laughed, not because it was funny but because I knew I couldn't wait for them to self-destruct anymore. I had to end this game myself. I contacted Rebecca again, my friend at the law office. After sending all the documents including the recording of the break-in, the video of Camille claiming authorized access, moving invoices and the previous failed investments, she said just one thing. If Camille has even a shred of sense left, she better get a lawyer immediately. But the biggest shock didn't come from Camille. An hour later, Rebecca called again. Madison, you might want to sit down. We just found out. Your dad is under internal investigation at the company where he's CFO. There are signs of embezzlement. I froze. You mean, he's been using company funds for personal expenses, including transfers to Camille's account, labeled as strategic consulting fees, for a fake company called Aura Empire LLC. I could barely breathe. Aura Empire, that was the name Camille used for her high-vibration healing crystal brand. Rebecca continued, this could go beyond internal violations. If the evidence holds, it could become a case of organized fraud, especially if they created a shell company to legitimize the money flow. I gripped my phone. For years I thought I was just a victim of favoritism and unfair comparisons. Turns out, I was standing in the middle of a family fraud swamp I was lucky not to be dragged into. The next day, Camille was summoned to the police station for questioning regarding trespassing and filing a false report. No thick makeup or ring lights this time. She looked pale, shaky, and red-eyed. Not from remorse, but from realizing the attention this time wasn't from followers, but from the law. A local news outlet ran a short piece. A female influencer in Asheville is under investigation for commercial fraud and exploiting child imagery to deceive brands. Prosecutors are also reviewing charges related to a family-run business under her name. 3 days later, my father was suspended from work and faced a civil lawsuit from his company seeking over $250,000, 0 cents in damages, labeled as marketing expenses. I wasn't happy, I wasn't smug, but I felt justice. I had lived a life of patience. I stayed silent through comparisons. I smiled while my sister flashed luxury handbags gifted by Dad, while I wrapped my sandwich in reused foil. But now, my silence had expired. A week later, I received a handwritten letter. Rare, no filters, no fancy fonts. Madison, I know you hate me, but I'm a victim too. I just wanted to live well, to have my kids feel loved. Dad never told me things would go this far. I'm sorry. Can you help me get a lighter sentence? I'm about to lose everything. I folded the letter, didn't reply, just took a picture, printed it out, and filed it away. For the day, Camille tries another tearful live stream claiming it was all made up. A few weeks later, I heard Dad had moved in with his sister in Florida to avoid the investigation while awaiting civil trial. Camille lost most of her sponsorships, her account was flagged for brand impersonation, and she had to rely on a public defender. And me? I still live in my small house. I repainted the living room walls, changed the locks again, and installed new cameras around the front yard. Every night, I pour a glass of red wine, play soft jazz, and sit with my pets napping around my feet. I don't have much, but what I do have, I fought to keep with cold resolve, logic, and quiet strength. No one gets to silence me anymore. I used to think the end of a crisis would be dramatic. Maybe tears, maybe shouting, maybe a lawsuit that shook the media. But in truth, what came last was an eerie quiet, as if the world had finally decided to let me go. 3 months after the incident, my house had completely changed. No more fake perfume from Camille. No more unfamiliar footprints on the wooden floor. No more presence of a father who always looked at me like a faulty copy of my sister. I planted lavender in the front yard. Every morning when I opened the door, its gentle scent greeted me like a peaceful whisper. You didn't break, and this is your reward. The living room now had a new bookshelf, where I placed books on psychology, justice, and some old journals I once couldn't bring myself to reread. My office, once piled high with evidence and sleepless nights, now only held a computer, a small cactus, and a framed photo of me with 3 rescue dogs I'd helped get adopted. I no longer woke up on guard. I no longer looked over my shoulder wondering when family might stab me in the back. I could breathe, fully, without interruption. Camille had vanished from social media. Her Instagram account with nearly 500,000 followers had been taken down after brands reported her for fraud. Those who once hyped her with honor had now shifted to cold comments. So disappointing. Turns out it was all just a scam. My father disappeared from my life like he had never been there. His company's lawsuit was in the process of reclaiming assets. His lawyer once called me, asking if I could testify that he used to be a good man. I hung up without answering. I knew they were scrambling, but I also knew everyone must take responsibility for their own choices. One afternoon, I received a letter with no return address. The handwriting was shaky but familiar. I don't expect your forgiveness. I just hope you know that because of your strength, I realized I'd been raising 3 children in a false world. I have nothing left, but they deserve a real mother, not an internet character. Thank you, Camille. I read it, folded it, and placed it in a drawer, not to forget, but to remind myself. Not every victory comes from taking something back. Sometimes, it's about never letting go of yourself in the first place. I continued working at the clinic. I wasn't rich, but I was living true to who I was. I didn't have a perfect family, but I had peace, something I hadn't felt in over a decade. Every weekend, I walked my 2 dogs through the little forest near my house. Once, a little girl asked me, "Do you live alone? Isn't it lonely?" I smiled and bent down. "No, sweetheart, I live with the things I choose, and they always find a way to stay." At night, I sat on the rocking chair out on the porch, the breeze fluttering through the white curtains. I no longer thought about wills, or houses, or who had once betrayed me. I thought only of one thing. I didn't lose myself, and because of that, I lost nothing. This story doesn't have a fairy tale ending, but if anyone ever asked me, "If you could do it over, Madison, would you choose a different path?" I'd say, no. I'd still choose real solitude over fake belonging. Madison's story is a powerful reminder. Not everyone in your family deserves your sacrifice. Sometimes protecting yourself isn't selfish, it's survival. When you stand up, draw the line, and hold on to what you've built with your own hands, you don't just reclaim your life, you reclaim your dignity. In real life, the right thing isn't always keeping the peace. It's cutting ties with what's toxic, even when it's wrapped in the label of family. What do you think about Madison's journey? Do you relate, feel angry, or have a different view? Share your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to follow the channel for more heartfelt stories about family and life.